Yolemusai, gratitude for life, Melchizedek. Sometime on this journey, you come across bits and pieces of information. It seems almost irrelevant. Yeah, so what? Your Rasta brethren um, introduce you to the Gospel of Barnabas in the 90s. How much sense that make? I mean, there's a part in it that says Christ didn't die and he got switched. They killed Judas instead. Sometimes you get these pieces of information. Okay, you see it, you read it, you hear it, but how do you connect it to other things? And then, a few years ago, I came across a couple of scriptures. Jeremiah 22, let's call it 28 to 30, and Jeremiah 36, let's call it 25 to 30, just to give you a little context. And it pretty much stated that Jehoiakim was so wicked and evil, none of his descendants could ever sit on the throne. And then you go through Jesus Christ's genealogy, and then you see Jehoiakim there. But then you kind of throw that out the window because it's not, how do you work that in a concise form that makes sense to you? Okay? But then again, other stuff's starting to come back to you. Like another scripture that says, and there will be those that comes to you saying that I am the Christ and will deceive many. So this morning I got up and I was looking at this sister's video, and she started bringing out something between the difference of Jesus the Christ and Jesus Barnabas. And yes, while I understand that there were a few Jesus in the New Testament, Jesus the Christ, which could be a magician according to the book of Barnabas, or there was another guy named Jesus Simon, the magician, and there was also another one named Jesus Bar Abbas. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to just do some reporting, and you guys decide. I'll bring forth the information. You guys check it out. I'm going to give you guys some rhythm today. We're working on this rhythm with my brethren, Peter Williams, a great sprangy Peter Williamson. Still have to show on the live instrument, so you're not really live yet. All right, bless up. Lights. Jeremiah 36, 28 to 30.
The mouth of Jeremiah, saying, Take thee again another roll, and write in it all the former words that were in the first roll, which Jehoiakim the king of Judah hath burned. And thou shalt say to Jehoiakim king of Judah, Thus saith the Lord, Thou hast burned this roll, saying, Why hast thou written therein, saying, The king of Babylon shall certainly come and destroy this land, and shall cause to cease from thence man and beast. Therefore thus saith the Lord of Jehoiakim king of Judah, He shall have none to sit upon the throne of David, and his dead body shall be cast out in the day to the heat, and in the night to the frost. And I will punish him and his seed and his servants for their iniquity, and I will bring upon them, and upon the inhabitants of Jerusalem, and upon the men of Judah, all the evil that I have pronounced against them, but they hearken not. Then took Jeremiah another roll, and gave it to Baruch the scribe, the son of Neriah, who wrote therein from the mouth of Jeremiah all the words of the book which Jehoiakim king of Judah had burned in the fire. And there were added besides unto them many like words.
Jeremiah 22, 25 to 30.
As I live,
tells you that none of the ancestors of Jesus Christ, none of the descendants of Jesus Christ's ancestors could ever sit on the throne.
Saith the Lord, though Coniah the son of Jehoiakim king of Judah were the signet upon my right hand, yet would I pluck thee thence. And I will give thee into the hand of them that seek thy life, and into the hand of them whose face thou fearest, even into the hand of Nebuchadnezzar king of Babylon, and into the hand of the Chaldeans. And I will cast thee out, and thy mother that bare thee, into another country, where ye were not born, and there shall ye die. But to the land whereunto they desire to return, thither shall they not return. Is this man Coniah a despised broken idol? Is he a vessel wherein is no pleasure? Wherefore are they cast out, he and his seed, and are cast into a land which they know not? O earth, 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 hear the word of the Lord.
Pay
Thus
attention
saith the
right
Lord,
here.
write ye this man childless,
None of this
a man
guy's
that shall not
descendants
prosper in his days,
can
for
inherit
no man of
the
his seed
throne.
shall prosper, sitting upon the throne of David, and ruling any more in Judah.
Hunting, 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 half a fine, something, something, something. Looking for a... What am I looking for so early in the freaking morning, though? All right, so they say this guy, an ancestor of Jesus the Christ, was so wicked that none of his descendants will ever sit on the throne. Let's make this make sense. Your judgment ball sodomite you. Think me wouldn't find you. Hunting, 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 half a fine, something, 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 looking for a, but I would have. Look at Adam and Cain genealogy. A lot of these similar names. So when it matters with this Jesus character, it is going to be the same thing. Similar name, that's a part of the deception. Hail the Most High, gratitude for life. You know, say, may I listen to this white sister, spiritual truth, what I want your name, long you for the truth about Matthew 24, cool. May I listen to her, and with the new information where Father show me, say, we address him by Father and not by anyone else, any other name or title. Now, I've been aware of the three Jesus I know in the New Testament so far. Jesus, Simon the Magus, Jesus, Barabbas. And for a while, I knew it meant the son of the father, Barabbas. Bar or Ben mean offspring, or Benny, or something like that. But then with this new information that Father is showing me, say, yo, I'm me name Father. Nobody talk to nobody like, this is my Lord and Master, slaves of Master. You deal with me as Father. And then I come now, if he say, I go down in the word Barabbas, son of the Father. And there will be those that comes to me saying that I'm the Christ, claiming to be the Christ. So you have three of them. Jesus, Simon the Magus, the magician. You have Jesus, Barabbas, and you have Jesus the Christ. And it just dawned on me when I went over to the next page that what the sister is actually saying, it just dawned within my inner spirit that it seems that the Barabbas was the real McCoy. It seems that the Barabbas was the real McCoy, the Jesus of the Father, the Jesus, Son of the Father. This is hitting my this is really resonating with me right now.
Jacob begat Joseph, the husband of Mary, of whom was born Jesus, who is called the Christ. So
Bomba pussy rascal. But then they gave you a genealogy of Jesus Christ coming down. In one of the genealogy, his ancestors were so wicked, the document says no one from his descendant will ever rule. That is Jesus Christ genealogy. All right. It says this boy was so wicked, no one from his descendants shall rule. So this switch of the two offspring in Genesis is coming to play again. Notice how Cain named all his sons like Adam.
This Jesus that is called the Christ. Okay, in Matthew 27:17. Therefore, when they were gathered together, Pilate said to them, Whom will ye that I release unto you? Jesus Barabbas,
it's right in front of your face to the
Father, or Jesus which is called the Christ.
And there will be those that come to me saying that they are, and there will be those that come into you saying that they are the Christ. And there will be those that come into you saying that they are the Christ. Judgment ball. How come me never catch this?
Son of the Father, and one that's called the Christ. And we're being pointed out that there's two. So there's an intentional reason for that. I hope my air conditioner's not too loud and you aren't hearing it in the background because it's too hot to do this without it.
Alright, just so it lit me. Let me see what about here that actually. Why did this hit me right here though?
Is like in Matthew
I come across this numerous times. Why did it hit me right here?
Several versions have it because it falls into certain manuscripts. And it reads, at this time was a notable, which means noted from above, prisoner called Jesus Barabbas. So after they had gathered, Pilate said to them, Whom do you want to...
I come in my Father's name. I wonder if that catch me. There was something about this page when it just hit me like a brick. I come in my Father's name. Well, I forgot to do some more study. I'm going to go back through the documents again. I come in my Father's name. That's what hit me. That's what hit me from this page.
Barabbas in the Greek. But it's derived from the Aramaic, which is Bar Abba, which means son of the Father. Some of the manuscripts of Matthew 27:16-17 have the full name of Barabbas as Jesus Barabbas. And this probably the name was originally written in this text. Now you can see down here the Greek, I put that in there too so you could look at it. But there definitely was two different Jesuses that are actually in the manuscripts.
Wash not only my feet, Lord, but my hands and my head. The disciples were washed and were seated at table to eat. Jesus said, I have washed you, yet are ye not all clean, for as much as all the water of the sea will not wash him that believeth me not. This said Jesus, because he knew who was betraying him. The disciples were sad at these words, when Jesus said again, Verily I say unto you, that one of you shall betray me, insomuch that I shall be sold like a sheep. But woe unto him, for he shall fulfill all that our father David said of such an one, that he shall fall into the pit which he had prepared for others. Whereupon the disciples looked one upon another, saying with sorrow, Who shall be the traitor? Judas then said, "Shall it be I, O Master?" Jesus answered, "Thou hast told me who it shall be that shall betray me." And the 11 apostles heard it not. When the lamb was eaten, the devil came upon the back of Judas, and he went forth from the house, Jesus saying to him again, "Do quickly that which thou must do." Had gone forth from the house, Jesus retired into the garden to pray, according as his custom was to pray, bowing his knees 100 times, and prostrating himself upon his face. Judas, accordingly, knowing the place where Jesus was with his disciples, went to the high priest, and said, "If ye will give me what was promised, this night will I give into your hand Jesus whom ye seek, for he is alone with 11 companions." The priest answered, "How much seekest thou?" Judas, 30 pieces of gold. Then straightway the high priest counted unto him the money, and sent a Pharisee to the governor to fetch soldiers, and to Herod, and they gave a legion of them, because they feared the people. Wherefore they took their arms, and with torches and lanterns upon staves went out of Jerusalem. When soldiers with Judas drew near to the place where Jesus was, Jesus heard the approach of many people, wherefore in fear he withdrew into the house. And the 11 were sleeping. And God, seeing the danger of his servant, commanded Gabriel, Michael, Raphael, and Uriel, his ministers, to take Jesus out of the world. Holy angels came and took Jesus out by the window that looketh toward the south. They bare him and placed him in the third heaven in the company of angels blessing God forevermore. Judas entered impetuously before all into the chamber whence Jesus had been taken up. And the disciples were sleeping. Whereupon the wonderful God acted wonderfully, insomuch that Judas was so changed in speech and in face to be like Jesus that we believed him to be Jesus. And he, having awakened us, was seeking where the Master was. Whereupon we marveled, and answered, "Thou, Lord, art our Master. Hast thou now forgotten us?" And he, smiling, said, "No, are ye foolish, that know not me to be Judas Iscariot?" As he was saying this, the soldiery entered, and laid their hands upon Judas, because he was in every way like to Jesus. Having heard Judas saying, and seeing the multitude of soldiers, fled as beside ourselves. John, who was wrapped in a linen cloth, awoke and fled, and when a soldier seized him by the linen cloth he left the linen cloth and fled naked. For God heard the prayer of Jesus, and saved the 11 from evil. Soldiers took Judas and bound him, not without derision. For he truthfully denied that he was Jesus. And the soldiers, mocking him, said, "Sire, fear not, for we are come to make thee king of Israel, and we have bound thee because we know that thou dost refuse the kingdom." Judas answered, "No, have ye lost your senses? Ye are come to take Jesus of Nazareth, with arms and lanterns as against a robber. And ye have bound me that have guided you, to make me king." And the soldiers lost their patience, and with blows and kicks they began to flout Judas, and they led him with fury into Jerusalem. And Peter followed the soldiers afar off. And they affirmed to him who writes that they saw all the examination that was made of Judas by the high priest, and by the council of the Pharisees, who were assembled to put Jesus to death. Whereupon Judas spake many words of madness, insomuch that everyone was filled with laughter, believing that he was really Jesus, and that for fear of death he was feigning madness. Whereupon the scribes bound his eyes with a bandage, and mocking him said, "Jesus, prophet of the Nazarenes." For so they called them who believed in Jesus. "Tullus, who was it that smote thee?" And they buffeted him and spat in his face. When it was morning there assembled the great council of scribes and elders of the people. And the high priest with the Pharisees sought false witness against Judas, believing him to be Jesus, and they found not that which they sought. And why say I that the chief priests believed Judas to be Jesus? Nay, all the disciples, with him who writeth, believed it. And more, the poor virgin mother of Jesus, with his kinsfolk and friends, believed it, insomuch that the sorrow of everyone was incredible. As God liveth, he who writeth forgot all that Jesus had said, how that he should be taken up from the world, and that he should suffer in the third person, and that he should not die until near the end of the world. Wherefore he went with the mother of Jesus and with John to the cross. The priest caused Judas to be brought before him bound, and asked him of his disciples and his doctrine. Whereupon Judas, as though beside himself, answered nothing to the point. The high priest then adjured him by the living God of Israel that he would tell him the truth. Judas answered, I have told you that I am Judas Iscariot, who promised to give into your hands Jesus the Nazarene. And ye, by what art I know not, are beside yourselves, for ye will have it by every means that I am Jesus. The priest answered, O perverse seducer, thou hast deceived all Israel, beginning from Galilee even unto Jerusalem here, with thy doctrine and false miracles, and now thinkest thou to flee the merited punishment that befalleth thee by feigning to be mad? As God liveth, thou shalt not escape it. And having said this he commanded his servants to smite him with buffetings and kicks, so that his understanding might come back into his head. The derision which he then suffered at the hands of the high priest's servants is past belief. For they zealously devised new inventions to give pleasure to the council. So they attired him as a juggler, and so treated him with hands and feet that it would have moved the very Canaanites to compassion if they had beheld that sight. But chief priests and Pharisees and elders of the people had their hearts so exasperated against Jesus that, believing Judas to be really Jesus, they took delight in seeing him so treated. Afterwards they led him bound to the governor, who secretly loved Jesus. Whereupon he, thinking that Judas was Jesus, made him enter into his chamber, and spake to him, asking him for what cause the chief priests and the people had given him into his hands. Judas answered, If I tell thee the truth, thou wilt not believe me. For perchance thou art deceived as the chief priests and the Pharisees are deceived. The governor answered, thinking that he wished to speak concerning the law, No, knowest thou not that I am not a Jew? But the chief priests and the elders of thy people have given thee into my hand. Wherefore tell us the truth, that I may do what is just. For I have power to set thee free and to put thee to death. Judas answered, Seer, believe me, if thou put me to death, thou shalt do a great wrong, for thou shalt slay an innocent person. Seeing that I am Judas Iscariot, and not Jesus, who is the magician, and by his art hath so transformed me. He heard this the governor marveled greatly, so that he sought to set him at liberty. The governor therefore went out, and smiling said, In the one case, at least, this man is not worthy of death, but rather of compassion. This man saith, said the governor, that he's not Jesus, but a certain Judas who guided the soldiery to take Jesus, and he saith that Jesus the Galilean hath by his art magic so transformed him. Wherefore, if this be true, it were a great wrong to kill him, seeing that he were innocent. But if he is Jesus, and denieth that he is, assuredly he hath lost his understanding, and it were impious to slay a madman. Then the chief priests and elders of the people, with the scribes and Pharisees, cried out with shouts, saying, He is Jesus of Nazareth, for we know him. For if he were not the malefactor we would not have given him into thy hands. Nor is he mad, but rather malignant, for with this device he seeketh to escape from our hands, and the sedition that he would stir up if he should escape would be worse than the former. For such was the governor's name, in order to rid himself of such a case, said, He is a Galilean, and Herod is king of Galilee, wherefore it pertaineth not to me to judge such a case, so take ye him to Herod. Accordingly they led Judas to Herod, who of a long time had desired that Jesus should go to his house. But Jesus had never been willing to go to his house, because Herod was a Gentile, and adored the false and lying gods, living after the manner of unclean Gentiles. Now when Judas had been led thither, Herod asked him of many things, to which Judas gave answers not to the purpose, denying that he was Jesus. And Herod mocked him, with all his court, and caused him to be clad in white as the fools are clad, and sent him back to Pilate, saying to him, "Do not fail in justice to the people of Israel." This Herod wrote, because the chief priests and scribes and the Pharisees had given him a good quantity of money. The governor, having heard that this was so from a servant of Herod, in order that he also might gain some money, feigned that he desired to set Judas at liberty. Whereupon he caused him to be scourged by his slaves, who were paid by the scribes to slay him under the scourges. But God, who had decreed the issue, reserved Judas for the cross, in order that he might suffer that horrible death to which he had sold another. He did not suffer Judas to die under the scourges, notwithstanding that the soldiers scourged him so grievously that his body rained blood. Thereupon, in mockery they clad him in an old purple garment, saying, "It is fitting to our new king to clothe him and crown him." So they gathered thorns and made a crown, like those of gold and precious stones, which kings wear on their heads. And this crown of thorns they placed upon Judas' head, putting in his hand a reed for scepter, and they made him sit in the high place. And the soldiers came before him, bowing down in mockery, saluting him as King of the Jews. And they held out their hands to receive gifts, such as new kings are accustomed to give. And receiving nothing they smote Judas, saying, "No, how art thou crowned, foolish king, if thou wilt not pay thy soldiers and servants?" The chief priests with the scribes and Pharisees, seeing that Judas died not by the scourges, and fearing lest Pilate should set him at liberty, made a gift of money to the governor, who having received it gave Judas to the scribes and Pharisees as guilty unto death. Whereupon they condemned 2 robbers with him to the death of the cross. They led him to Mount Calvary, where they used to hang malefactors, and there they crucified him naked, for the greater ignominy. Judas truly did nothing else but cry out, "God, why hast thou forsaken me, seeing the malefactor hath escaped and I die unjustly?" Verily I say that the voice, the face, and the person of Judas were so like to Jesus, that his disciples and believers entirely believed that he was Jesus. Wherefore some departed from the doctrine of Jesus, believing that Jesus had been a false prophet, and that by art magic he had done the miracles which he did, for Jesus had said that he should not die till near the end of the world, for that at that time he should be taken away from the world. But that stood firm in the doctrine of Jesus were so encompassed with sorrow, seeing him die who was entirely like to Jesus, that they remembered not what Jesus had said. And so in company with the mother of Jesus they went to Mount Calvary, and were not only present at the death of Judas, weeping continually, but by means of Nicodemus and Joseph of Arimathea they obtained from the governor the body of Judas to bury it. Whereupon, they took him down from the cross with such weeping as assuredly no one would believe, and buried him in the new sepulchre of Joseph, having wrapped him up in 100 pounds of precious ointments. They returned each man to his house. He who writeth, with John and James his brother, went with the mother of Jesus to Nazareth. Those disciples who did not fear God went by night and stole the body of Judas and hid it, spreading a report that Jesus was risen again, whence great confusion arose. The high priest then commanded, under pain of anathema, that no one should talk of Jesus of Nazareth. And so there arose a great persecution, and many were stoned and many beaten, and many banished from the land, because they could not hold their peace on such a matter. The news reached Nazareth how that Jesus, their fellow citizen, having died on the cross was risen again. Whereupon, He that writeth prayed the mother of Jesus that she would be pleased to leave off weeping, because her son was risen again. Hearing this, the Virgin Mary, weeping, said, Let us go to Jerusalem to find my son. I shall die content when I have seen him. The Virgin returned to Jerusalem with him who writeth, and James and John, on that day on which the decree of the high priest went forth. Whereupon, the Virgin, who feared God, albeit she knew the decree of the high priest to be unjust, commanded those who dwelt with her to forget her son. Then how each one was affected. God who discerneth the heart of men knoweth it between grief at the death of Judas, whom we believe to be Jesus our Master, and the desire to see him risen again, we, with the mother of Jesus, were consumed. The angels that were guardians of Mary ascended to the third heaven, where Jesus was in the company of angels, and recounted all to him. Therefore Jesus prayed God that he would give him power to see his mother and his disciples. Then the merciful God commanded his 4 favorite angels, who were Gabriel, Michael, Raphael, and Uriel, to bear Jesus into his mother's house, and there keep watch over him for 3 days continually, suffering him only to be seen by them that believed in his doctrine. Jesus came, surrounded with splendor, to the room where abode Mary the Virgin with her 2 sisters, and Martha and Mary Magdalene and Lazarus, and him who writeth, and John and James and Peter. Whereupon, through fear they fell as dead. And Jesus lifted up his mother and the others from the ground, saying, Fear not, for I am Jesus. And weep not, for I am alive and not dead. They remained every one for a long time beside himself at the presence of Jesus, for they all together believed that Jesus was dead. Then the Virgin, weeping, said, Tell me, my son, wherefore God, having given thee power to raise the dead, suffered thee to die, to the shame of thy kinsfolk and friends, and to the shame of thy doctrine? For every one that loveth thee hath been as dead. Jesus replied, embracing his mother, Believe me, mother, for verily I say to thee that I have not been dead at all. For God hath reserved me till near the end of the world. And having said this he prayed the 4 angels that they would manifest themselves, and give testimony how the matter had passed. Whereupon the angels manifested themselves like 4 shining suns, insomuch that through fear every one again fell down as dead. Then Jesus gave 4 linen cloths to the angels that they might cover themselves, in order that they might be seen and heard to speak by his mother and her companions. And having lifted up each one, he comforted them, saying, These are the ministers of God, Gabriel, who announceth God's secrets; Michael, who fighteth against God's enemies; Raphael, who receiveth the souls of them that die; and Uriel, who will call everyone to the judgment of God at the last day. And the 4 angels narrated to the Virgin how God had sent for Jesus, and had transformed Judas, that he might suffer the punishment to which he had sold another. Then said he who writeth, O Master, is it lawful for me to question thee now, as it was lawful for me when thou dwelledst with us? Jesus answered, Ask what thou pleasest, Barnabas, and I will answer thee. Then said he who writeth, O Master, seeing that God is merciful, wherefore hath he so tormented us, making us to believe that thou wert dead? And thy mother hath so wept for thee that she hath been nigh to death? And thou, who art an holy one of God, on thee hath God suffered to fall the calumny that thou wert slain amongst robbers on the Mount Calvary? Jesus answered, Believe me, Barnabas, that every sin, however small it be, God punisheth with great punishment, seeing that God is offended at sin. Wherefore, since my mother and my faithful disciples that were with me loved me a little with earthly love, the righteous God hath willed to punish this love with the present grief, in order that it may not be punished in the flames of hell. And though I have been innocent in the world, since men have called me God, and Son of God, God, in order that I be not mocked of the demons on the day of judgment, hath willed that I be mocked of men in this world by the death of Judas, making all men to believe that I died upon the cross. And this mocking shall continue until the advent of Mohammed, the messenger of God, who, when he shall come, shall reveal this deception to those who believe in God's law. Having thus spoken, Jesus said, Thou art just, O Lord our God, because to thee only belongeth honor and glory without end. And Jesus turned himself to him and writeth, and said, See, Barnabas, that by all means thou write my gospel concerning all that hath happened through my dwelling in the world. And write in like manner that which hath befallen Judas, in order that the faithful may be undeceived, and everyone may believe the truth. And answered he who writeth, All will I do, if God will, O Master. But how it happened unto Judas, I know not, for I saw not all. Jesus answered, Here are John and Peter, who have seen all, and they will tell you all that is past. And Jesus commanded us to call his faithful disciples that they might see him. Then did James and John call together the 7 disciples with Nicodemus and Joseph, and many other of the 72, and they ate with Jesus. Third day Jesus said, Go to the Mount of Olives with my mother, for there will I ascend again unto heaven, and ye will see who shall bear me up. There went all, saving 25 of the 72 disciples, who for fear had fled to Damascus. And as they all stood in prayer, at midday came Jesus with a great multitude of angels who were praising God, and the splendor of his face made them sore afraid, and they fell with their faces to the ground. But Jesus lifted them up, comforting them, and saying, Be ye not afraid, I am your Master. And reproved many who believed him to have died and risen again, saying, Do ye then hold me and God for liars? For God hath granted to me to live almost unto the end of the world, even as I said unto you. Verily I say unto you, I died not, but Judas the traitor. Beware, for Satan will make every effort to deceive you, but be ye my witnesses in all Israel, and throughout the world, of all things that ye have heard and seen. And having thus spoken, he prayed God for the salvation of the faithful, and the conversion of sinners. And, his prayer ended, he embraced his mother, saying, Peace be unto thee, my mother, rest thou in God who created thee and me. And having thus spoken, he turned to his disciples, saying, May God's grace and mercy be with you. Then before their eyes the 4 angels carried him up into heaven. As Jesus had departed, the disciples scattered through the different parts of Israel and of the world, and the truth, hated of Satan, was persecuted, as it always is, by falsehood. For certain evil men, pretending to be disciples, preached that Jesus died and rose not again. Others preached that he really died, but rose again. Others preached, and yet preach, that Jesus is the Son of God, among whom is Paul deceived. But we, as much as I have written, that preach we to those who fear God, that they may be saved in the last day of God's judgment. Amen.